Hi, my name's Adrian Wilson and welcome to the IRDC closing keynote speech, in which I'll discuss why I believe that stores are way more than just bricks and mortar.
Store closings, the death of them all, the complete and total takeover of e-commerce. It's the end of shopping as we know it, right?
Retail icon Sears. It pioneered ordering by catalog and was seen as the Amazon of its time. It's not just a few big retailers. In just 3 years, we've seen a wave of retailers go bankrupt.
You can have a couple Paylesses and a Gymboree and you add in a trampoline park. That's not going to make you come to the mall if they aren't coming anyway.
Every retailer that you talk to now, even successful ones like Walmart, they'll say, if we had this to do over, we'd make these stores a little smaller.
6,000 years ago, the first customer walked into the very first store in Mesopotamia. They were probably greeted with a smile and, "How can I help?" from a salesman who could tell if the person was either coming in just to get out of the rain or because he actually wanted to buy something. By using his eyes, he could deduce himself if the customer was rich or poor, and by his clothes or accent where he came from. We now call this facial recognition and predictive data. The customer would ask for a product and the salesman will have shown him the options, giving his opinion on the different qualities and prices of each, tasting them or trying them on for size and explaining how it was made, then making the customer feel like the final purchase was the wisest. We now call this an experiential transaction. The customer would then explain to his friends how wisely he bought a great quality item at a good price from a knowledgeable and friendly person in a cool new selling concept called a store. We now call this a Yelp review. I want to introduce my panelists today: Stephen L. Willett of LJ Peretti Cigars, Jack Gernon of Charles Street Hardware, and Janelle Nanos of the Boston Globe. 235 years ago, the oldest store in the USA opened. I gave them a call, and obviously they can't be here today, but they said, "We haven't advertised in 47 years except by talking to our customers." 194 years ago, the oldest store in Boston opened. Kenneth Gloss told me, "I don't run a shop, I run a business." 180 years ago, the oldest jewelers in Boston opened. Richard Finn told me, "We have a great location and it's a family business." And 166 years ago, this amazing book was published, The Shopkeeper's Guide. 1853, it was giving the same advice to those thinking of entering the retail trade, small shopkeepers and large retailers alike, explaining how to be successful in this business, you got to treat the customer like a person, not a potential sale.
And I tell you what, you'll read things in there that you think, wow, we just paid $20,000 for some consultant to come and tell us this. In larger localities where competition abounds, the small shopkeeper frequently outstrips his more powerful rival by one element of success which may be added to any stock without cost, but cannot be withheld without loss. That element is civility. A kind and obliging manner carries with it an indescribable charm. It must not be a manner which indicates a mean, groveling, time-serving spirit, but a plain, open and agreeable demeanour which seems to desire to oblige for the pleasure of doing so and not for the sake of squeezing an extra penny out of a customer's pocket. In other words, not have a nice day. The large shopkeeper frequently grows proud of his position. There are so many little civilities which customers like, but which the large shopkeeper may be too busy or unwilling to pay. He forgets that these civilities are the steps by which he rose, and that the withdrawal of them must lead to his rapid descent. These are the points upon which large traders are often weak, and where the small trader finds them vulnerable. Punctuality, cleanliness, the neat arrangement of his stock, the attractiveness of the window, the absence of all, as we call absurd puffing, we used to call it, the early and regular opening of the shop in the morning and the attention paid to everyone entering it. These are the secrets of the small shopkeeper's success against the influence of giant capital, stroke Amazon. This is 1853, I think it's fantastic. So, look at this fella, 139 years ago. And I didn't want to give any results away. 150, sorry, 150. I'll see you at the West End tomorrow. So, Stephen, how do you do it?
Well, in my store we do puffing because we smoke, so that's I'm what I'll gauge. But well, it's customer service. It's being in Boston. It's a combination of civility and arrogance because people want to come to a specialty store where they can get things they can't get anywhere else. So one must ascertain one's customer. But we ship all over the world. We're very fortunate because we've been in business so long and we do things that nobody else does.
And one of the things you had to absorb, which not many people would do, you just explained from one day to the next, because of the law changing, how much your business had to deal with.
Well, I think it was 12, 13 years ago, the former mayor of Boston put through an ordinance that you couldn't smoke in restaurants or hotels, and we supply all the hotels and clubs, private clubs and restaurants in Boston. So one day we lost $700,000. But, we found other ways to make it up.
And one of those other ways, I asked him yesterday, I said, you ever stop e-cigarettes?
No, I didn't like the idea of it at the beginning.
Somebody who's selling cigars and pipes.
Yeah, but
e-cigarettes, that's kind of a bad idea, I think.
No, but tobacco is one thing, but when you're inhaling chemicals made in China, you're much more problem.
Right. No, and you're dead right. So here we go, Forever 21. Oh dear, oh dear. So I like this quote, change almost never fails because it's too early. It almost always fails because it's too late. So you see that. I was kind of sneaky there, but Forever 21 became Forever 11, Chapter 11. So I couldn't resist, guys. So these are retailers that are meant to be showing us all how to behave, how to survive, how to do whatever. I'm pretty sure Forever 21 didn't have much civility, humility. I know from my own daughter who went through a fashion degree, they were well known for taking independent artists and stealing their designs and not caring, etc. Lots of bad publicity. So yeah. In contrast, 111 years ago, so I went into Bromfield Camera Shop and I spoke to the owner and I said, so how long have you been around? And he said, well, the records go back to 1943, but we know we were around in 1908, so the absence of all, as we call absurd puffing, we used to call it. The early and regularly opening of the shop in the morning and the attention paid to everyone entering it. These are the secrets of the small shopkeeper's success against the influence of giant capital, stroke Amazon. This is 1853, I think it's fantastic. So, look at this fella. 139 years ago. And I didn't want to give any results away. 150, sorry, 150. So here we go, Forever 21. Oh dear, oh dear. So I like this quote, change almost never fails because it's too early. It almost always fails because it's too late. So you see that. I was kind of sneaky there, but Forever 21 became Forever 11, Chapter 11. So I couldn't resist, guys. So these are retailers that are meant to be showing us all how to behave, how to survive, how to do whatever. I'm pretty sure Forever 21 didn't have much civility, humility. I know from my own daughter who went through a fashion degree, they were well known for taking independent artists and stealing their designs and not caring, etc. Lots of bad publicity. So yeah. In contrast, 111 years ago, so I went into Bromfield Camera Shop and I spoke to the owner and I said, so how long have you been around? And he said, well, the records go back to 1943, but we know we were around in 1908 because there's a story in the Boston Globe of a policeman being thrown through our window in a riot. Which I love. So the other thing is they love the internet, and you can see that there's the woman in black was this middle-aged woman, well off, looking at a mirrorless camera, and there's the old, like typical crusty photographer enthusiast, etc. But they have a giant eBay store. They sell on the internet, and one thing I want to touch on later is how this us versus them idea of it's the internet or bricks and mortar. It's kind of like, it's dissolving a bit. People realize that retailers need the internet, and the internet, sole internet companies actually want to have a presence on the high street. So I think that kind of polarity is maturing. So I was wandering around Boston. So there you go, empty store. Oh, look at that next to it, 1898 Jewelers, still open. And you said it used to be a Radio Shack.
It used to be a Radio Shack, 14.
That's a tough block.
That is a tough block.
I learned about that block.
There's Bromfield Street, Whitfield Street. So there you go. There's a boarded up street, right? Payless Shoes on the corner, the big to let sign, and oh look, there's a guy in the red there. And who's that guy? Oh, it's Fred Rosenthal, who's been around since 1948, who has a pen shop, who's survived Payless Shoes. I mean, this is a funny thing. People will criticize and say, hey, what's your business model? How are you working, you know, how are you competing, how are you making all this money? But these people are all still here. And he says, yeah, we do have a niche. And people are going back to writing. Like Jack said, every time somebody orders something internationally, like Johnny Cupcakes, he puts a card in and says, thank you.
Right on the back of it, thanks for the order. You know, hope to hear from you again. Every single order that goes out in my store is handwritten.
So yeah, and he said, literally, I wish I could remember the phrase, but he said, we get people calling and it's like over the moon for 2 hours about whatever, about pens, and we never put the phone down. We just still listen. So, one thing is, to me, as I said, touched on at the beginning, we used to talk about technology and profit per square foot and all that kind of stuff. And there was no such thing as pop-ups 10 years ago, because retail space has gotten cheaper and landlords are more desperate. You've got pop-ups, you've got experiential artisanal, all these things. And as Johnny Cupcake, sorry I spelled his name wrong, but I'm sure he'll forgive me. It's not B2B, it's or C2C or whatever, it's human to human. So actually, I didn't know obviously what he was going to talk about there, but this is exactly what this panel's about. It's about human to human. So here you go, Jack. So Jack's my star guy. Sorry, I don't mean this in a funny way, but Jack was like, oh, I'll help you with the thing. I'll go and see the jeweler. You know, I'll do all these different things. And when I first went in, he's very modest, and he said, go and see my wife. She runs this gallery up the street. And his wife said, did he tell you about the keys he has? And I said, no. She said, well, he has over 500 door keys, front door keys, of all the customers in the area, all color-coded. So if you lose your door key, you can just go in. He's already got it there.
Yeah, a lot of the young kids, when they get off the bus, moms and dads aren't home and they forget their keys. So it's like, okay, what's your favorite color? Red? Yeah, here's the red drawer. Dump them out, look at it, find the key, give it to them. It's just the way of being part of the neighborhood. It's how I was brought up. That's how I brought my children up, who were brought up in the neighborhood. And it's just a human, civil, kind way to do it. And people come back all the time. It's great. I love it.
So if you remember, my store last year was all about the community and involving people and then bringing people in, and it wasn't about money, like that phrase said. It wasn't being nice to squeeze another penny into your pocket. It was about being in the community. And so when I went in yesterday, there was an older lady, like 60 or something, and they were having a conversation, and she said, okay, I'll see you in about 15 minutes. And I said, hey Jack, you know, you're okay for tomorrow, aren't you? He said, yeah. And he said, oh, did you hear the conversation with the lady? And I said, no. He said, well, that's one of my old neighborly customers, and unfortunately she has Alzheimer's. So she comes in the store regularly, and she believed that she could hear dripping water. And she hasn't got any dripping water because she's got Alzheimer's. But I'll go over in 15 minutes just to check and see if she's okay.
She just needs some human, contact. And she comes in almost every day, as there are a lot of other people. And people just want to be smiled at and talked to and say, hi, how are you? Really, how are you today? And I did, I went by and we talked, and she didn't have any running water, and went back to the store and made more keys.
These two gentlemen do things which these top retailers would say, oh, it's old-fashioned, whatever. But this pendulum is swinging back. So, I kind of hate that phrase, bricks and mortar, because that's like saying the internet is a CPU or something. It's not. So it's these people that make their store what's important. It's not bricks and mortar. It's humans, it's caring, and it's providing a service. So, special guest. Austin, look, 1872, obviously she's that long. But so I thought it'd be great to. There's a lot of things about the media, there's fake news, there's sensationalism, etc. And I thought it was good to. One of the things that we spoke about this, Jack and I, about the little retail he has forgotten.
Obviously, as everyone in this room knows, the retail industry has been in such flux on so many fronts. And the sort of the stalwart stores that you've come to rely on are remarkable in the sense that they've maintained a presence. But for every store that is thriving and surviving, there are many others that are not. And I feel like I often write the closing story of these shops. And sometimes it's the first time I'm really getting to walk in and experience it, the sort of firsthand. And I will say I wrote a story like 2 weeks ago about Fresh Pond Market closing in Cambridge, which the thing I learned in the course of the reporting was it was an Armenian family, and it started the market, in Cambridge about 100 years ago. They arrived and started the market at the same time as the family that now operates Star Market. Right? And so, they both came up in Boston at the same time. One family decided to really grow and expand and become this massive brand, and that's opening in a huge development in the hub on Causeway. They just had another store open last week, and this other store just decided to be the one single outpost, right? And that one single outpost was a community hub. They knew every single person that came out. Julia Child used to buy her meat there.
Julia Child used to shop at my store.
I'm sure she did, yeah. They used to hand out raisins to all the kids. And so the fact that they were closing was devastating. And the entire neighborhood came out. They closed down the block and did a block party. And what was great about it was on their own terms. The two gentlemen, the brothers who ran it, sold it to another local business who's going to go into the space. They sold it for less than what they probably could have made on the building because they wanted it to stay a marketplace. They kept that in mind, but they also didn't want to pass it down to their kids because they wanted an easier life. So I think what's remarkable in the community that when I get to interact with long-standing businesses is just how much they treasure the relationship they've built with their customers, and if they can find a way to continue that in some way, that has always been far more important to them than being a titan of industry, if you will. So I can go on and on about retail for hours, so please.
So why don't you do a piece on us tomorrow?
I will. I was just thinking I need to do a list of all the long-standing, like the oldest operating businesses in Boston. Okay. And I think to your point though about how do you get coverage and how do you find a way to be relevant, quote unquote, in an era when I wrote a story today about cashierless stores in opening, yeah, I know. I think it's that humanity and coming to me with that story about the keys, and I love it, I think that as much as, I write the sort of bells and whistles and what were we as a culture when we think about, 3.6 million jobs that cashiers are 3.6 million people have a cashier job, and technology like Amazon Go wants to wipe that out. Like, that's a really big problem, and those are big issues that we're thinking about. But I think for every one of those stories I write, when I can write a story about a shopkeeper who has a really strong presence in the community, or a restaurant owner who is doing something really remarkable for their employees, I think our readers really respond to those stories and they want to hear those as well.
And Amazon Go hasn't taken off.
Not to the point where they thought. I mean, they anticipate that they've had thousands of stores open by now, and it's been, I think, I think it's been, they invested hundreds of millions of dollars into that concept. And I don't know, I honestly don't know that shoppers want it, you know?
Because you've either got the internet, which is impersonal, or you want to go to a shop where it's personal.
Yeah,
Simple as
exactly.
that.
Yeah, a lot of this technology that we're seeing comes out of the, you know, the opportunity that you can do it. You can save some money to do it, but I don't know that it's necessarily what consumers want. And I think that's part of what, you know, the themes and ideas coming out of the conference.
So I left the hotel yesterday to walk around, and I came across the market that was out there from 1978, and people were buying from the market. It wasn't just old people, it was, you know, a mix of people. And there was the duck tour. Has anyone ever done the duck tour? You know, where it goes into the thing? And, yeah. Sorry, duck tour. Doctor. And, you know, you could quite easily have a loop in audio, but, you know, God bless them, they must do this tour and talk.
They just had their 12 millionth visitor, their 12 millionth tour. Yeah, I was there last week for that.
So if it's like 25 people, that's 500,000 times somebody's like said all this stuff. And you go on that, you don't want to hear a tape. You want to hear a person that says nice hat or whatever. These, you know, they're very personal things. Now, when I walked around, I kind of needed a pee. That's one of the things that you know, but there's no public bathrooms. So I went into Panera Bread, which, you know, is kind of just a bakery, really, isn't it? So this was the sign on the bathroom. Restrooms are for Panera customers only. And in fact, if you want to, you know, get in here, don't ask us. Look at the 4-digit code on your receipt. Thanks. I mean, this is 6,000 years later of experience of retail and, you know, looking after people. And it's like, really? Is this, you know, this seems to be something that's, I mean, even just the whole thing with Starbucks where they have to now have bathrooms for everybody because of the incidents they had. I mean, they don't even read the news. I mean, it's crazy. How you would just go, I'm just left there going, you're idiots. Sorry. Anyway, so that's the end of the slideshow. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to call you out because, as I say, this is a human-to-human thing. And one thing that a few speakers said, nobody asked any questions. So rather than us being up here like all aloof and everything, I'm going to come down and I'm going to ask either some questions while I'm, you know, within you, or if you have any, does anyone have any questions?
What would you say to someone that's thinking of opening up a store, or a young person? What would be maybe some advice or thoughts that you would share with them?
Be well capitalized was the first thing I tell them. And just as importantly, have a passion for the business. But I mean, in the last 30 years, all these young people have opened so-called cigar stores, cigar bars, and half of them fail because they don't have the money. They don't realize what the inventory costs and what it costs to maintain it. I mean, it seems like a basic rule of business, but so many people get engulfed with the idea rather than with reality of the business.
And the other, to add on to that, you have to take a big fat patience pill every day. Because you also have to be there at least 50, 60 hours a week, and it's your shop, your dream, and if you have employees, everybody else has to be on that same, you know, dream path, because it's a ton of work doing retail, especially startup stores. But like you said before, love and live your passion, and if you can make money at it, perfect. It's great.
I work for the Timberland Company, and when you think about the passion, I'm totally enthralled in this idea of this human to human. I think that's what we're missing. And the 50, 60 hours, I mean, it's a lot. What are some of the things that you might want to share that are some, I'd say, lower hanging fruit for people to be able to grab onto with regards to making that human contact and touch so important in your own environments?
Oh, so I heard better. The interviewing process has gotten so out of control. I hire friendly people. If they don't know the hardware business, I can teach you that, but I can't teach you to be nice and kind and friendly and smile at people. That I can't do.
The civility from 1853, the civility they talk about.
So, you know, what I'm seeing in the companies that are finding real success are they're finding an audience and then meeting that audience exactly where they want to be and having that conversation in a really intimate way. And that's, I think, you know, maybe that's finding people who are engaged on a younger level to do that. But I think there's, you know, again, finding people who have those personality skills is the thing that's distinctive.
These are the people, that's why I wanted to bring these people here, because, as I say, all this conference is about human connection and real, genuine people. And you don't get more genuine than these two, right? And one of the reasons I got all the clothes from my store was from the Salvation Army was on every receipt it says, your purchases help us help others, which is just a fantastic concept, really. Is there another question?
I am sorry to say I've never been in either of your stores, but I am curious, having been in business so long, what's the biggest risk or effort outside of your comfort zone that you've taken that's either failed or been successful? You know, whether it's, you know, relaying out the store, marketing efforts, you know, any sort of large change that you've that you've tried to go out and do on your own rather than had to react to, like the internet.
Well, historically, I mean, we had, over the years, we've had probably 8 stores. And at one time, we had 5 stores in downtown Boston. The main store being, well, it doesn't matter, you're not from Boston, but in any event. All the time, I'm asked by people in state and out of state to buy their stores, and I've thought about it seriously, but I must tell you, my attitude is get them in and get them out. That's why I've never put a lounge, and we've had other stores, but I've decided that one store with a strong internet presence and good customer service is the best way to go. And I have seen so many of my colleagues overextend themselves by buying 2 or 3 stores and end up in bankruptcy. So I would say that's, for me, that's the biggest risk, other than the obvious ones with legislation, and I spent half my time with that, but that's not interesting, so that's the biggest risk.
For me, I think the biggest risk was having to buy my real estate, because if you don't own your real estate in retail now, it's very difficult to survive longevity like we have. It's really important. Also, people have asked me, hey, can you open up another store in X or Y or wherever? And I think about it, and it's like, unless you can buy the space you're in, it's really difficult to turn a buck. And I can't spread myself in 5 different locations as well as I can with one and give everybody the proper customer service they deserve. I can teach other people how to do it, like managers, but again, I know I'd just be going crazy, running from store to store. So yeah, that's my advice. You know, keep it simple. It works. I'm happy.
So in terms of finance and banking, how, in the old days, the bank manager would be like the store owner, and he would know you and know your kids are going to college, or knew you were in some, you know, you want to expand. How do you feel that is nowadays? Is that something that you suffer from because it's not necessarily the most glamorous end of investing, or somebody at head office has said don't lend money to retailers because they're all going bankrupt? Or
I've never found that to be the case. I don't borrow money, so I'm self-sustaining. And if I weren't self-sustaining personally, I wouldn't be in business. I know that's a relatively small business, under 15 million, but I would not be in business. But I have good relationships with banks and Morgan Stanley and Brown Brothers. Somehow I think we'll get by.
Well, on the other side of the fence is me, who had a breakfast meeting with a banker, it was 9 years ago exactly, when no one was getting any money, and over a breakfast handshake meeting, I got a mortgage for the building, and that was the biggest leap I've ever done. And we've become friends, and he's my bank, and you know, he's got my back, and it's a great success story. because he knows I'm going to be there every day. I mean, I live upstairs. When am I going to go?
And Janelle, do you feel the city supports these people? They're forgotten? Are they, because there's all these stores closing and they're losing income, are they suddenly turning and going, hey, we have to find a way to keep these people, give them a tax break? Or they're just the lost part of Boston?
No, I mean, I think Boston, just think about the way you think of Boston as a city, like we honor our history and we you know, it's who we are. So I think, you know, part of the reason why some of these stores can survive is because there is that loyalty and people are deep rooted in their neighborhoods. I think rents everywhere are going up, and that's a challenge. You're seeing development happen in almost every corner of the city. And when, you know, a building can, or a whole swath of buildings can be bought and have a big condo development go in, it's tempting for people who are getting older and want to retire to cash out. And it's hard because I feel like we write every single week about a restaurant closing, a store closing, you know, and people get really sad and, oh, the Boston we know is leaving, but you know, then they'll also say, well, when was the last time you went? And so I think, you know, we, like everything, like people want shiny and new, and that's, I think, the era we're in now more so than ever. You always want to try the new thing. You always want to patronize a new restaurant. You know, you want to try the store that you saw on the internet that now has a brick and mortar presence. But I do think, you know, that as that's happening, you know, there is also a real, people really do love the authentic, and you know, they come back to that more and more now because they see these things cycle through so fast that the things that are able to stay, I think people really treasure.
It was interesting because we were talking about Amazon, and I said, really, it's just Sears Roebuck catalog, right? It's just a different way of having a catalog. It's just easier. You know, Uber is just, they call them disruptive. Uber is just an easier way of hailing a cab and paying for it. There's nothing disruptive. And in fact, Sears Roebuck, you can buy a house. You know, Amazon doesn't sell you a house. So this is kind of the point of this whole talk, was to say, okay, all these things, they're not scary, the sky isn't falling in, there are certain things that you should follow that are always going to work. Civility, you know, like, and I want to read out and see the clock's ticking down here. So, from 1853, here we go. If we might draw the portrait of a shopkeeper, we would paint him thus: a man cheerfully rendering his best labour and knowledge to serve those who approach his counter and place confidence in his transactions, making him agreeable alike to rich and poor, but never resorting to mean subterfuge and deception to gain approval and support. Frugal in his own expenditure, that in deriving profits from trade, he may not ride roughshod over the interests of others. Let the public discover such a man, and they will flock around him for their own sakes. I believe there's two of those people here, and I'm really happy to have found you and, you know, hear your stories and introduce you to people who maybe wouldn't have ever gone in their stores and thought, this is the future, because these guys are the future. They've done it, they've been through it. They've been through civil wars, never mind the internet. So, thank you very much.